Hey, this is Driver 88. So if you're like me, you find yourself now and again when you can't sleep at 2 a.m. on the Porsche configurator looking at things that you can't currently buy. And one thing that took my eye recently is that as of September 2024, at least in my region of Australia, the Porsche Macan is finishing its production as of last month for all of its petrol models. As far as I'm aware, roughly in 6 to 8 months, the US will follow suit, but it made me think, the last 2-litre petrol Macan, is it something that is worth buying today? Against its rivals, and given that we're only going to get the EV, more expensive version coming up, is this a car that is worth your money? Recently, I've noticed that as of 2023, Porsche sold more Macans than they ever have in the US as of last year, and it is quite, I think, a bit of a lost opportunity for Porsche that they don't make a hybrid version of this as well as the Cayman and Boxster to continue on to get those more affordable sales. Excuse me. So I have found a almost brand new, lightly used Macan 2-litre 4-cylinder. I'm going to have a look at this against the recent competition of the Mercedes and BMW and see whether it's worth picking up one of these lightly optioned cars as a sort of prestige, multi-use small SUV. Now, as I said, the Porsche Macan is incredibly popular around the world, and I think that's largely due to its looks. It is very similar to, of course, the Audi Q5, but I really like the exterior of these things, particularly in a color like this with this 20-inch Macan S wheels in a nice dark silver. I think it has relatively good looking lines given that it's a mid-size SUV, and I think that many people agree with me, and that's why they sell so many. This one comes with a 2-litre turbo, 261 horsepower, 400 newton meter engine, and it is the base Macan. Don't tell anyone, but it is pretty much a VW GTI engine turned front ways in the front of this thing, and it will do 0 to 100 in 6.2 seconds. Quarter mile, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if you'll be doing too many quarter mile runs in this car. This thing is, however, over 1,800 kilos, and I wonder if this is enough performance or whether it's worth potentially looking at a Macan S instead. I've driven many Macans. This has not always been my favorite, but I haven't driven one for a while. So it's going to be interesting to review this today. So welcome to the interior of the base Macan. Now it's all business and black leather in here. Just a few options. The black adaptive sport seats, which offer more side bolstering. We have the larger Macan S wheels, the panoramic sunroof, and a lack of sport chrono, which allows you to change your modes and go a little bit faster, 0 to 100. That's pretty much all I would pick. I wouldn't be picking any other options. I think they're probably a waste of money. Now, this central screen is really nice. The rest of the interior, you're probably thinking, geez, that looks a little bit old compared to the design and tech of the new X3 and GLC. However, it feels really premium in here. Everything is really sturdy. There's a real lack of creaks that you have compared to, say, a Mercedes, and it just feels well built and tidy. We have a bit of a novelty. It's a analog tack here, which some people think is cool. Some people will prefer all digital, but I think this is all the screen you need. It is quite a nice place to sit, even though it isn't chock full of plastic screens. Now you'll notice in the back we have a panoramic sunroof, which is an option. We've got 2 Type-C ports for the rear, which is good. Air conditioning, of course, with temperature control. We've got hooks and handles. And this sound system, this is the base, but we also have a Bose and Burmeister as options. So, I mean, not a lot of leg room. This is with the seat pushed forward a fair bit, but at least the rear seats are slightly reclined, which is comfortable enough, and they are not entirely flat like they are in some other cars. We also have 2 cup holders, which is handy. What would also be nice is to have some wireless charging for your phone, because you only have a very small little compartment here with your USBs. Now it is a nice and smooth little engine, which comes alive nice and happily and smooth, and we shall take it for a drive now. setting off in the Macan. The venerable little EA 888 engine, very, very smooth. We have, I'm not sure if we have adaptive suspension, but that is an option. And I don't really think it should be an option. It should be standard. Very smooth, very quiet operation. These sports seats, they're not sort of agreeing with my body shape, but I think they'll suit a lot of other people. Maybe the standard seats would be better for most people picking the 2-litre Macan. Now, 0 to 100 in 6.4, not 6.2, like I said, with the, unless you pick Sport Chrono. You will get, supposedly, somewhere in the 8s for fuel consumption. But I know with this car, if you're the sort of person who does lots of small trips and goes around town, you will chew through at least over 10 litres per 100 kilometers because of all the stopping and starting and revving and, you know, moving around this 1800 kilo plus car. One thing that I do really love about these cars though, even with the 21-inch wheel option, is that they're very, very quiet and have really good NVH on the freeway. I've had many, many kilometers in Macans, and one thing they do well, of course, as they should, is spend lots of their time just daily commuting. There is a sort of sporty element to them, but I think that's really reserved for the GTS variant. This 7-speed PDK, well, driving it in traffic, it's been developed over so many years that it's just really, really smooth. You can barely tell whether it's changing gears or not. And speaking of those years, the Macan turns 10 this year. So it'll be its 10th and its final year as a petrol car, I guess. Maybe 11 years for some other regions. If you close your eyes, you could be driving almost anything, almost any car. There's nothing that particularly tells you that you're driving a Porsche. It is certainly quite refined and quite satisfying to drive in terms of, as I said, its NVH. The little 4-cylinder is happy to rev, and there is not so much lag, but just it takes a little while for you to get the engine going because of all that weight that is behind the car. The responsiveness is not too bad. What if we put things into sport mode? I really wish we had Sport Chrono for this car so I could just change it into sport mode, but of course if you start touching the pedals straight away, we can up the revs and the responsiveness and keep the car in its power band. Go, go, go! I mean, it's not particularly slow, but for these days, you know, for cars that are at this price point, $110,000 these days, I think you can get a bit more performance from the new hybrid from Mercedes, and of course from a number of other models in smaller variants from the big 3 Germans. One thing that I've always liked about the Macans is the way that they change direction from, not a sports car point of view of course, but they're pretty eager to move considering the weight, and there's not a huge amount of body roll. It's nice and progressive. So we put things into sport mode. We drop the gears. Doesn't feel too bad on the brakes. I have seen people track Macans before, but not the 2-litre version. Out of the corner, I mean, the engine's very happy to rev. Very happy to rev. But it is just up against all that weight. Red line at 7,000 RPM. Yeah, I mean, if you're after performance, this is just not the car for you. I worry that some people will buy this car just to have that Porsche badge, and as much as it is my favorite brand, I wouldn't recommend paying a premium for this particular model. The more that I drive it, the more that I just think it's worth trying to spend that extra money on the 6-cylinder, because that's where more of the satisfaction comes from. It's by no means a poor car to drive or to live with. It's got a nice amount of space. The big hatch out the back, it just makes life so much easier with groceries and all that sort of stuff. But the whole calculation to me just doesn't make enough sense, at least for someone who enjoys driving as much as I do. Engine but turned straight, so much longer exhaust probably makes it sound a bit better than a GT. So let's talk about cost. Now, the Macan starts at 110,000 Australian dollars before options. This one has the seats and the wheels, which I think are about $5,000 or $6,000 together. An option that I definitely would pick if I had the Macan, the 2-litre, is the Sport Chrono, which I've just realized is actually not on this car. So you can change the modes and go a little bit faster in sports mode for your launch control. Beside that though, the Macan S is sort of the elephant in the room, which is the twin turbo V6, and that car costs 135 grand. So that's 22% more expensive for more than 30% more power, with of course a larger V6 twin turbo with a better sound and I think just more character. Now, if you are looking at setting your mind on the 2-litre Macan, I guess there are certain amounts of people who are just looking for that bit of nice car to drive around day to day. I would look at some of the others, like the new GLC, maybe even the 2-litre X3, which just came out. Otherwise, if you're definitely set on a Porsche, I would probably recommend going with the Macan S, and even ticking the air suspension, which I've always been a fan of, having driven many of these cars. So what's the verdict on the final petrol 2-litre Macan? In my opinion, if you really want one, I would recommend going with the Goldilocks model, the Macan S, with the twin turbo V6. Other than that, it's sad that this thing is leaving us, because they really are nice all-round cars. I can see why Porsche sells so many of them. All right guys, this is Driver 88. I will see you next time.